I'm willing to bet that the best pie you ever had a homemade crust. So here's how to make your own homemade pie dough. It's easy and so rewarding. Now, the most important rule of thumb when you're making pastry is cold. You need the butter to be cold because we do not want to blend the butter and flour together into a uniform paste. We want to see little chunks of butter in our pastry. That's how we get a nice flaky pastry, because the water in the butter actually will evaporate, making nice layers of that pie dough. So I've got my butter in the fridge, being nice and cold. If you're making this by hand, the fridge is good. If you're going to use a food processor, you're going to want to freeze that butter for just 15 minutes or so to get it to an almost frozen state, and then you can put it back in the fridge, get the rest of your ingredients ready. Let's get that butter out of the fridge, and we'll start by mixing the dry ingredients together. So in goes our flour, in goes our salt, in goes our sugar. Now let's pulse that together. Now's when we add our butter. We've cut it into small pieces already, so that all we're going to have to do is pulse it just to get it slightly coated with the flour. Now what we're looking for are chunks of butter about the size of a pea. So you're going to carefully reach in here and grab those butter chunks out and look for the size of them. Now it's time to add our liquid. So let's just drizzle that lemon juice in right off the top. And then I'm going to add about 4 or 5 tablespoons to begin with. We'll pulse it, see how it's doing, and then add some more. Okay. Now it should start to look like crumbs, and you should think, oh my goodness, it's going to come together as a dough in a minute. I'm going to add just 1 more tablespoon of water, and then we're going to bring this dough together. So once it starts to come together around the side of that food processor bowl, we're going to take it out and do the rest by hand. Sprinkle a little flour on the surface of your countertop, and let's get this out of here. Gather this together with your hands and pack it flat into a disc. This is going to take some time. It needs to cool in the refrigerator before you can roll it out. You could even do this a day ahead of time and be ready to make your pie tomorrow. So we're going to wrap this up in some plastic wrap, put it in the refrigerator, let it sit for at least 30 minutes, but again, overnight is perfect. And it's time to roll out our pastry dough. Here's when you can really take that great look at it and see all those flecks of butter. Really promising. So we're going to take it out, and what you see on my countertop is a big piece of silicone that I've cut to fit my area. I'm going to start by sprinkling a little bit of flour on top here. If you want to end up with a circle, it's easiest to start with a circle. So shape that pastry into the shape that you are going to end up with, and then roll from the inside to the edges. You don't want to roll all the way over, because then what you do is you end up with a sloped edge. So from the center out, center back, center out, center back. And then give it a 90-degree turn. I always grab a little more of that pastry flour and then keep going and keep moving it along. If it starts to stick on you, sprinkle a little more flour, but only sprinkle as much as you need. And now what you're looking for is how thick you want that pastry to be. You don't want it too thick, because then it takes too long to cook and your pie filling will overcook before the pastry's done. Once you have it about the right size, measure it against the pie plate that you're going to use, keeping in mind that you want to have some overlap there. So make sure it's big enough and keep rolling if you need it bigger. So once you have it easily big enough for your pie plate, we're going to roll it up onto the rolling pin. This is the easiest and safest way to transfer it to that pie dish. So roll it up gently, bring your pie dish in, and then unroll it over your pie plate. Now we're going to give it some slack to let it fall into the bottom of the pie dish. And that overlap is always a good thing. So don't worry, we're going to cut it to fit later on. Once you have your rolled out pie dough in your pie plate, let that sit in the fridge for 30 minutes. Now's a good time to roll out a second batch if you want a top crust. Then fill it with your favorite fruit filling, put the top crust on, and then cut the crust to fit. Rolling it over, make whatever pretty design you want, bake it in the oven, end up with beautiful homemade pie dough.